Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin, episode 28. And we just got done with a gym session, and it is currently 8 a.m.
Yes, that was awesome.
I'm not really like a huge morning person. Well, here's how I generally try to quantify it for people. I'm okay. I get up early.
Yeah.
I am a morning person in the sense that I'm up and functional, but there's a big difference between getting up in the morning to do something around the house or go to work or that sort of thing versus getting up in the morning and going and training hard.
Right.
Like it's a completely different mentality that's really, really tough for me. But
Yeah.
I kind of enjoy doing it sometimes.
Yeah, me too.
Like you feel like the sense of accomplishment, like it's only 8 o'clock and we're recording a podcast, already got some food in. Had a good training session, lengthy training session. So like you have all these things that you've already done and most people aren't even up now. So
Right.
I'm not saying that I'm going to accomplish any more today. It just shifted to a little bit earlier, but I still feel like I'm accomplishing more because the sun's barely come up, I guess, would be a way to describe it.
I agree.
And we're recording out in Studio B, and you can hear the birds chirping. The weather's beautiful, which is a rarity in Ohio. So overall, it's shaping up to be a pretty good day.
Yes.
I don't know what your plans are. You may go meet the wife and family, you said?
Yeah, something like that. It depends on what time we get done and what they're into, but we have a lot. We're finishing up that project today.
Mm-hmm.
Today or tomorrow, we'll finish the project over at her grandmother's house. And then I'm finally free to start working on the honey-do list. So
I'm actually going to be doing some hiking later on. My family's coming down. I'm meeting them. And see, like that's kind of the thing I got into in quarantine is hiking. I don't know if I'd consider it hiking because it's not like I have like my boots and my backpack and a walking stick on, but I just like going through trails in the woods and stuff at different state parks. Like for some reason, it's just kind of been really, really cool for me to get out and be connected with nature, and it's very peaceful and tranquil. So like I really like hiking for some reason.
I do too. That was one of the things when I first started 75 Hard that I utilized early on as one of my outside exercises because I love the outdoors.
Yeah.
I can actually do the outdoors now.
Yeah.
And it's an exercise because it was a workout. I was finding big rocks and carrying them back to the truck, just whatever I could do to add an extra aspect.
And so let's give a little disclaimer. Apologize if you guys can hear the birds chirping, but if you can, hopefully it adds some quality to your morning or afternoon or evening or whenever you're listening to this. So workout today was way different from anything that we had done in the past. At least it was atypical for me for sure. More of, I don't really know how you tag it. Would you say circuit-ish? I mean, it wasn't really a circuit as in we were supersetting or doing multiple exercises, but it was very high rep, lightweight, just kind of to get a good pump. It was very atypical, again, of anything that I'm used to. What we did was we did 5 exercises, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
There was 3 of us, you, myself, and Trevor, who's a friend of ours. And Trevor actually had to go to work, so he left a little bit earlier. And then Garrett, one of my former football players who plays college football at Wheeling University right now, he kind of jumped in and helped us with the last movement. So there were 3 of us at all times, and we did 300 total reps.
Yeah.
And what we would do is we would have a particular exercise like close grip bench press. And we would put on a weight, and we'd have to do it for 300 total reps combined. So let's say on the first set, I got 13. Well, then when Justin would go, he would start 14, 15, 16. Let's say he got to 25. And then once he hit 25, Trevor would start 26, 27. So we just had to have a cumulative total of 300 reps for 5 different exercises. So in total, that adds up to be 1,500 total reps that we did between the 3 of us. So it was pretty exhausting and very humbling too, because number 1, coming off quarantine where training was pretty down-regulated for me. And number 2, not used to training like that in general. Like, even if I was in a gym, I wouldn't have done very well with that just because I don't train in that rep range at all. And it was... Gosh, it was horrible. In a good way, though.
I think it's important, though, to add those things that we don't normally do.
So that was kind of where I wanted to go with this, with the podcast today, was 2 things. Number 1, comfort zone breaking. And then number 2 is, and it's kind of, in essence, the same category as doing, a lot of times, especially in fitness, the things that you're not doing are probably the things that you need to be doing the most.
Mm-hmm.
So, like... Let's start with weight training, strength training, because it's the foundation for both you and I, and probably a large majority or constitute of our listeners. When you strength train, or do anything for that matter, you get, I don't want to say mundane, but you get very entrenched in what you're doing, and that becomes like your paradigm of thinking. So
Right.
like you always go to the gym and you lift. You know, for example, for you and I, like our friends who want to train with us will say, hey, do you want to go lift?
Right.
It's not, do you want to go do cardio or do you want to do some circuits, or it's always lift, because that's the basis of what you're doing. And I know so many guys that take on this meathead mentality, and females, it's not just guys, but they take on this meathead mentality of anything else is going to like lose gains.
Right.
You know, like, and I joke around about it too. I do it just as much as anybody. Like I can't, you know, do that because that's too much cardio and I'm going to lose muscle tissue, or I don't want to do that workout because that sounds girly. And for me, like some of the things that I've done that have been most beneficial to my training have been when I've gone outside my comfort zone and done something that I've never done before.
Right.
And then I slowly have started to integrate that into my programming because it's really helped. So like for me, one thing that sticks out top of my mind is yoga, because several years ago, I decided to do yoga just because I wanted to try it, because I like being someone who has experiences with things in case people ask about it. So when it comes to, and I've talked about that numerous times, when it comes to a diet or a typical or a type of training style, or even supplements, like I want to try a lot of things so that way I can give individualized assessments and feedback based on myself. Like
Right.
I know what this does to me, not I know what this does because someone told me or I read that that's what this does. So I tried yoga, and very, very interesting paradigm shift, because it's going from the exact opposite of the quote training that I'm used to, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I haven't done it recently. I was going to start doing it again, coincidentally enough, right before quarantine started. But now I'm going to get back into it. And it's amazing how much that helps my training. Mental state, number one. And then secondarily, you know, just mobility and body control and core strengthening and everything that comes along with it. So when I tell people I do yoga, they find that, most people find it interesting.
Well, that's like, you know, whenever I was a kid, you know, my parents used to tell me, because I loved football and I loved wrestling, they would joke and say, we're going to put you in ballet in the off season. But that's a real thing. You know, athletes, football players and wrestlers and any kind of athlete, really, a lot of high level ones do ballet or do some kind of a dance motion or a yoga, because it's a different kind of training, but it helps you get in tune with your body.
Yeah, I think so. I don't want to branch off away from our primary topic of like comfort zones and stuff. However, I will say this, that I think that the number one thing that people lack, and when I say people, let me get a little bit more specific and say athletes, especially young athletes, is the ability to control their body and understanding basic body awareness and proprioception and how their body moves in space. Most kids nowadays don't move well. It seems like athletes are very rigid, and it's very difficult to teach that. It's something that has to be developed in milestones as you're coming up and growing. But once you have an 18-year-old kid that's very stiff and can't move and very rigid, it's very difficult to teach how to be a little bit more fluid in your movement. Like you can do all the hip mobility drills you want. If somebody doesn't have good lateral movement, it's going to be very, very difficult to fix. I mean, you can make it better, but in order to fix it and make it ideal, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Right.
Because, like, again, there's developmental stages through adolescence that, you know, and I think that, I don't want to sound like a, hey, get off my lawn guy, but, like, a lot of it's, I think, predicated on video games, staying inside, not moving as much, not playing like I did when I was a kid, where we never wanted to come inside.
So I'll be the get off my lawn guy, because I think it's big time. Like the connection between, like you said, kids and young athletes today are rigid, and they don't do things. It's because they don't do things.
Yeah, for sure.
They sit in their bedroom, and I'm part of that generation. That's a big, you know, when I was little, that's the reason when I was young, because being very overweight runs in my family. So, but when I was young, I was overweight, but I wasn't very, very, very overweight because I played outside. Yeah. But as I got older and made my own decisions and had a car and could watch TV whenever I wanted, eat whenever I wanted, and stay inside and play video games whenever I wanted, that's what I did, because it's generational. It's what we do now. Our generation, for the most part, as we got older, that's what happened.
And maybe we can tie in those two topics and say, well, why do we do all these things? Well,
Right.
It's because comfort.
Right.
We try to make things easier. I don't want to walk to the store. I can drive to the store.
Yeah. I actually said that when I first started driving. When I first got my license, I said, I'll never walk somewhere again.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely not. And now it's like, can I walk? How far away from the store can I park?
Yeah, do I have to drive? Yeah, for sure. So I think that I see that a lot, going back to the original topic at hand, is people not being able to break their way of thinking and get out of their comfort zone. And I understand that because, like I said, I'm the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that when I do, even though it wasn't that much of a comfort zone breaker today's workout, because we were still weight training and doing movements that I would normally do, just in a different rep fashion. I definitely think the more you do, the better off you're going to be. The more well-rounded of an athlete or as a person you are, the more you're going to kind of find success in other areas too. So like, let's take, and I know that there are people that are not like this, so I don't want to say that everyone, but at least in my experience, a large majority of successful people seem to be successful in other avenues.
Yep.
Like if you see like a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, very rarely, again, just in my experience, I'm sure that, you may know some, or our listeners may know of some, but like in my experience, the majority of CEOs of multi-million-dollar companies or whatever aren't morbidly obese.
Right.
They don't have like horrible broken down family lives. Like spiritually, they're in tune. Mentally, they're in tune. Physically, they're in tune. It's like they almost have everything going for them. And then you have to wonder, that's not just a product of finances.
Right.
Like that's a product of the proper way of thinking. They have all these things in alignment. And that's where you seem to, you have a divide where people say, oh, you need to focus on something and be very myopic and make sure that what your goal is, that's your only goal. And then you have other people that say you need balance, because if you're not well-rounded and one area of your life starts to crumble, everything's going to start to crumble. And then the counter argument to that is, well, if you spread yourself thin, which we talked about doing on the last podcast, then you don't get great at anything. Right. So it's really, really a unique, individualized experience that you have to go through in order to balance focusing on a goal versus the importance of getting out of your comfort zone as well.
Yes.
Like I don't really know where the line is and how to figure that out.
I don't think there is a clear, definitive line. I think that line is like intentionally blurred from the manufacturing of our brains.
Yeah.
Like from how we're made, it's supposed to be blurred. You're not supposed to figure that out because you're supposed to always go after it and try to figure out how to balance all that. And I don't know if that's the right explanation.
I see a lot of people though, like think about this. You hear all the time when, because I get it from successful people when I listen to like different podcasts or, TED Talks or whatever, where a lot of motivational people enjoy actually writing down and quantifying what they do to get out of their comfort zone. Like every day, do something you're out of your comfort zone and write it down. Do something that makes you uncomfortable. And I think that that's a very, very cool experiment or something to do, but I don't do it.
Yeah, that's
and I know that I need to, but like I don't do it because it stinks. It's uncomfortable.
It's not fun. That's why one of the hashtags I do is the discomfort zone. David Goggins' book Can't Hurt Me, he has challenges, roadblocks set up throughout the whole book, and one of them is get out of your comfort zone. It's your discomfort zone. It's your challenge. It's do things that are out of the ordinary. It's don't. If you are so habitual every day, throw a wrench in your own plan.
Yeah.
And tell everybody about it.
And that's hard for me. I can definitely say that I need to improve in that area. I'm okay with getting out of my comfort zone physically, for sure. Like I'll do any type of training. Like take running, for example. My endurance is horrible. And I will definitely do any type of like running, like what we've done, even like 5Ks, which for some people may find that laughable because it's 3 miles, 3.1.
Yep.
So it's just over 3 miles. People will find that, laughable. That some people will, that like that kills me, but like that puts me down. Like that's tough for me.
Me
but
too. I get it.
But I can do that physically. I'm okay. Where I struggle with getting out of my comfort zone is scheduling. Like when my schedule is broken, I'm very, very particular about things that I need to do, when I need to do them, and when it gets broken, I kind of have like this minor mental breakdown where I just feel like my whole day is thrown off and screwed up just because, to use the term you said about throwing the wrench in it, it's like, oh, now everything's screwed up. Now I have to back this up and I have to reschedule this and do this. And when things don't go according to the plan that I have in my head, it's hard. Like I get very homesick sometimes, even if I have no reason to be home. Like if I go out of town for a couple days, like I'll feel like, oh, I need to get back. Right. Well, why do you need to get back? Like if you don't have to work and it's like, no, I don't have any obligations. I just feel like I need to be home. It's hard to explain.
In my place.
Yeah, my comfort zone. Yeah. So I think that's an area that I need to improve on for sure, is getting out of my comfort zone and actually like writing things down. Like this is what I'm going to do to get out, because I don't want to be stuck in the monotony of everything that I do every day.
Right. It's adapt and overcome. I mean, and that's something that I think I've really gained over my weight loss journey, and my self-improvement journey, I think, is what I'm going to start saying instead of weight loss, because it's more than just weight loss. It's been self-improvement. I mean, that's just really what it has been, because I was a lot worse than I wanted to be, and now I'm getting better. But it's adapt and overcome. It's if something bad happens, don't freak out. Don't get upset. Look at the situation and make a decision. That's basically, all the authors that I read and listen to, Jocko and, David Goggins and Cameron Haynes, all these guys, that's what they talk about is don't get excited about the small stuff, because if you just adapt and overcome your situation, things get better.
And the sad part for me is that I don't even have, at least recently, thankfully, I haven't had, the things that I get worked up about aren't major issues.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing, but it's a bad thing that I have that
right
that mentality towards it, where I let these little things get to me, and I shouldn't. It's like, that is not a big deal. Why on earth are you stressing about that?
Right.
And, people will always say, control what you control, and if you can't control it, don't worry about it. But I think that's even harder, to not worry about the things you can't control, because you can't control them. Like, I like being in control of certain circumstances and my fate, and just everything that I do, I like being in control of it. Whereas if something happens that's out of my control, you feel helpless, and that makes me worry more. I know that worrying doesn't fix it, but that's kind of an innate reaction in most people. Just because you can't fix it, or you can't, control it, doesn't mean you can't worry about it. I mean, that's hard.
So the way I look at that is, because I like the control of what you can control. I say it to my wife all the time. We'll get it off. We're going to, like, if there's a list of 1 to 10 and I can control 3 of those things, I'm going to control those 3 things to the very last second. And it's almost like systematic. Your body, like, you're able to control what you can control. Once you controlled that and that situation's finished, the next ones start to open up. And then, so maybe it's one thing. Now one more thing on the list I can throw in there, and now I have, my mind space is freed up. I have some time freed up, and I can control that situation. Like, my grass needed cut on Monday, but I had to work and work out and take care of the family Monday through Friday. So now tomorrow, I can control that grass is going to get cut.
Yep.
That's kind of how I look at it. Is I'm going to control all the situations that I can, but they take time to line up and get in the right place.
And how do you go about then controlling getting out of your comfort zone? Because people who seek control typically wind up in a linear fashion, where they're just doing things on a straight line, so to speak. They're doing things every day, habitually. How do you go about breaking your comfort zone? Because, like I said, with me, doing the breaking down physical barriers of comfort has always been natural to me. Like, even little things like wearing a hoodie and sweatpants in 100-degree weather, because it makes me sweat and feel like I'm working harder, even though that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
At least the working harder part, but definitely the sweating part. It's a mental thing for me. So I don't mind. I have no qualms with pushing myself physically as far as I need to push. But then when it comes to, I don't know if I'd say the mental side of things, but like my schedule, it's hard for me to implement things that make me uncomfortable. So my comfort zone in other areas outside of the gym are what I need to improve on. It's
yeah,
hard.
That's a hard one. I don't know exactly how I do it, and I don't know that I do it well. I like to think I do. That's the controlling aspect of me.
Maybe it's just a talking point. Maybe there is no solution. Maybe it's
Right.
just something
It's just
that you
something
need to
work through,
recognize.
yeah.
And when you're going through, maybe it's like a recognizing thing. Like, hey, maybe you don't want to actually actively go out and change your comfort zone of what your schedule is. Like, I don't think anybody anticipates like, hey, I'm just going to mess up my schedule today and not get a lot done and purposely put myself back just because I want to get uncomfortable. Like,
Right.
No one does that. But if that does happen, maybe just like a self-awareness and being conscientious of, okay, my schedule's messed up. My day's, in the crapper. That's okay. Here's what, to use your phrase, adapt and overcome. Here's what I'm going to adapt. Here's what I'm going to change. And then the result is going to be as good as I can make it, given the circumstances.
I guess what I do, and I think how I should have answered that is I'm too happy and things are going too good for something small, and everything is small because it's all a small part of the big picture.
Yeah.
So
certainly
for something small to derail my happiness, it's not happening. The pandemic, and it completely derailed our podcast for a couple weeks because we had to figure out how to use Zoom. It made things hard for me because I just joined the fire department, and then things changed there. I was getting I felt like my routine was getting so good in the gym, and like I was really starting to click and mesh and make some really good progress, and then that went away. I had to keep a smile on my face and just figure something out. Figure it out. Go harder somewhere else. So I started putting more effort into my house, and now, for the first time in me and my wife and I's adult life, our house is great. It's the cleanest it's ever been. The outside doesn't look like Ma and Pa Kettle. We have actual landscaping, and my garden is fantastic. It's not even June yet, and I got fruit and vegetables growing, like actually making food. So like I'm finding happiness in the failures that were forced upon us because I have to. I refuse to be upset over something small because I was a half a car 2 years ago, year and a half ago. You know what I mean? So like, I'm still really big. Like to me, I'm still the biggest guy in the room almost everywhere I go. But I was way bigger a year and a half ago.
And I think that when you get to that point where everything's going well, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not as difficult to be dismissive of minor things. Right. I noticed that, like, I can be, for one, very motivational when everything's going well. Like, I could talk about thinking about things positively and all this stuff when I'm not the individual going through it. And we've had episodes where we've spoke on that before. It's very, very difficult to not sweat the small things when you have big things happening too.
Right.
Like when you have some type of issue, whether it's health related with you or a family member, financially related, anytime you have something that's like severely impacting your life in a negative manner, every little thing that accompanies that, every little setback seems to be magnified tenfold.
Yeah.
So like, if I'm having a financial crisis and I'm driving down the road and I get a flat tire, it's like, okay, well, you can replace the tire, and obviously it's going to be a strain in an already financially unstable situation, but it's just like the fact that I have a flat tire and I have to stand here and change it, like that's like almost overbearing, and it's really not that big of a deal, but you have so many other things playing into how you're thinking and your emotional state that when something small or minute happens, yeah, it may seem trivial to some people, but for me, it's like the proverbial end of the world because I have all this other stuff going on.
Right.
And things that I would never even think about as being a negative circumstance or a negative issue, like nothing really major, now they're huge deals.
Yeah.
Because I'm already in that negative mindset. So that's where I think people struggle the most, is when things are very, very difficult. And then the little things happen, and that's when they stress them. I think it's a little bit easier too. So
this is that's kind of like what you're talking about there, where money, and then the flat tire and my roof's leaking and all that stuff, I turn to my faith. You know, I realize that I'm not in control. So, you know, God's got this. He'll figure it out. And I'm just on the ride. So let's just take the ride. And what's gonna come is gonna come.
Yep.
You know, I don't talk about my faith too much, but I mean, that's really how I got through all of the beginning part of this journey, because it was an emotional roller coaster for 10 years of what are you doing to yourself?
Mm-hmm. And I think there's two ways that you can look at that for both groups of people. If you're a spiritual person, you can say, okay, you know, there's a higher power. You know, God is, like you said, God's got this. It's not in my control. I have someone looking out for me. Like, there's a higher power that's guiding me through this.
Right.
Like the old saying, if God brought you to it, he can get you through it.
That's it. I couldn't think of the saying.
even for the non-spiritual people, though, a way to look at it is experience, in the sense of there's been multiple times in your life and my life and everybody's life where we thought it was over, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And to this point, we're still here.
Yeah, we're still going.
So, like, when they say, oh, everything will be okay, yeah, that's a cliche that's thrown around a lot. And in times of distress, you're dismissive of it and you don't think anything. You're like, no, it's not going to be okay because I have this going on. But ultimately, it always does end up okay.
Right.
So I think that even if you're non-spiritual, you can look at that and say, hey, every time I've gone through crap like this, it's worked out.
Yeah.
So this is just another one of those instances. That doesn't make it any easier to deal with, but at least you know you're going to come through the other side.
Right.
It's like riding a roller coaster. I hate roller coasters. I'm terrified of heights. Like, I am petrified of roller coasters. But if I get on one, which never happens, but hypothetically, if I were to get on one, at least I would know, hey, this is going to suck real bad, but I'm going to get to the end of it. I'm going to get off of it, and then it's going to be over. So I definitely think that faith is a useful tool for some people, and then experience is a useful tool for those that aren't faith-based. You know, for you and I, it would be a faith thing to get through it. But certainly there's some benefit that comes with knowing and understanding that it'll end. Yeah.
I think just relying on the fact that not allowing yourself to be unhappy. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how I look at it. I really do. Like, I'm too happy right now when things are going good, that when things get bad, and right now things aren't great. You know, like, I have a lot of home repairs that I'm up against, and I don't have the money to do them. So it's stressful. It is stressful, but I know that eventually things are going to line up, and I'm going to get that roof done. I'm going to get that bathroom done, and it is what it is, because everything else is going so great. Why would I can't allow myself to derail myself worrying about one or two aspects when I got 85 other things to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like adapt and overcome, prioritize and execute.
You'll see that.
Yeah, and you know, just to say, I'm quoting things from, you know, Jocko Willink. You know, there's a lot of the stuff I talk about because I learned so much reading his books and listening to him talk that it's, you know, I'm just stealing what he says.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very nice when you can find somebody like a role model, specifically in the motivational realm.
Yeah.
If you can find someone that you connect with or relate to or understand well, like take David Goggins, for example. If you guys don't know who he is, you need to look him up. He is insane, I guess, for lack of a better word, complete psychopath.
Yeah.
In a good way.
The uncommon amongst the uncommon.
He is, yeah. And some of his, like, self-inflicting disciplines are beyond, almost to the point where you think, like, with all due respect, there has to be some type of mental
illness,
disability or illness there, where you can't be, I don't want to say that driven, because driven isn't even that much of a masochist, where you like inflicting torturous pain, because the things he's done have been unreal.
Yeah.
But he was never someone, like, love his message, and it's unbelievable, and I can't say enough good things about the guy, having never met him, but just from seeing what he does. But I don't connect with him necessarily. Right. It's just like, that's never been, like, obviously I'm one to push my body for sure, but I've never for whatever reason, he's just never been one that I've listened to regularly.
Right.
So I think that sometimes you have to find someone that you connect with or that you feel has insights that parallel yours. And realistically, I think all motivational speakers, like people that you mentioned, like Goggins or Jocko, they have the same message. Yeah. It's just a matter of how they portray it, and I guess the type of energy they give off doing so. So the more you listen to, I guess the more experience you have, you'll find someone that definitely you connect with. Because I do that too. Like I don't want to say that I regurgitate other people's work, but a lot of what I say is stuff that I hear elsewhere, or thoughts that I've discussed with someone, even friends, that like we've had these discussions, and that's kind of shaped my way of thinking. So I definitely think that it's a useful tool to find people like that and to listen to things like that, because that's mental growth, which is the only way that physical growth is going to happen.
Right. I think we ain't out here to recreate the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's people's job to push messages that they've heard somewhere, sometime, or messages that they've went through, and they need to push their story to teach somebody else. I think it's it's my responsibility. It's all of our responsibility to take our shortcomings that we've done, that we went through, we've overcome, and then portray them onto other people, so that they can then use a little piece of your big story to fix an issue, in their life.
Yep.
It's like completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So like somebody could use my weight loss story, or what I've went through getting to where I'm at now in weight loss, and fix their anxiety and depression, or their financial woes. You know what I mean? Like it could be just one little piece of any story can change your life. So that's why I like to tell people like all the stuff that I hear. Like the things that I hear Jocko talk about, the things I hear Goggins talk about, or the things I hear Cameron Haynes talk about while he's running and shooting and lifting. He's crazy.
Like I've had like little instances in my life over time, not even in the realm of self-improvement or self-mastery or life-changing events. I've had things in my life over time where someone like a coach or a teacher has said something to me positive that has stuck with me forever.
Yeah.
Like I've had comments that like coaches made to me in middle school that like I always will remember when a coach said this to me, because this is how it made me feel. And it was like a great feeling, and it didn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but I remember hearing that. And so like, to go back to what you were saying, is any piece of information may be beneficial to someone. Any type of motivation that you might be able to give someone could be motivational. And then to get back to the original topic at hand again, maybe you doing things that are uncomfortable can inspire other people to do things that are uncomfortable. Right. Like when they see, when you first started training, when they see someone that's over 500 pounds getting it in at the gym and going hard, they'll say, well, what excuse do I have? Right. Like that dude's going hard. And I found inspiration through many people, even people that I don't want to say are beneath me, because I would never, ever, ever use that term, but people that are beneath me in terms of experience. So like maybe people that are just getting started in the gym, right. I see how hard they work and I'm like, oh, that really inspires me. I need to be working that hard, because if they're new and can work that hard, I've been doing this a long time, I should be more of a professional at this. The other thing I was thinking about is we mentioned it in the gym today. Cole.
Cole, yeah.
I mean, Cole McComas is a wrestler.
With a work ethic that nobody else, that unparallels anybody else I've ever met.
And it's so unique the way he goes about his craft. Cole is wrestling next year at Rider University. I believe it's in New Jersey. So he has a full Division I scholarship, wrestled at high school. We coached him. I've done a lot of his strength programming, of course. And he's so calculated and so meticulous and so focused when he trains that it's very stoic, emotionless, just straight-faced. But when I see him go about his practice routine and how calculated and precise every single thing is, when I watch him train, it motivates me. And I've told him that before. I said, I know that this may sound silly, but like when I coach you in practice, I get inspired by what you do. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. Like you're such a professional at this. Like you take everything seriously. And I noticed that with athletes, that seems to be a big thing for some of the great ones that I've had the privilege of working with, is the ones that do the best are the ones that take everything seriously.
Right.
Like even our warm-up. Like the warm-up has to be done correctly. And some people, when they think warm-up has to be done with effort and, be very, very measured, that doesn't mean doing it full speed.
Right. It's just,
that means doing it the right way.
Right.
So think lifting intensity. Lifting intensity sometimes can look like screaming and yelling and giving it your all. But for some people, that's not the case. Sometimes lifting intensity is being silent and being very internally focused on what you're trying to accomplish that you're not talking. So
Right.
It depends on the individual. But you can definitely gain inspiration from anywhere. I mean, think about all the musical artists or the even like actual artists, like painters and stuff that find inspiration in the most obscure places, or would never, ever, ever condone this, but people who find inspirations after drug use or something,
Right.
or even coincidentally enough, you can find inspiration in tragedy in your own life that maybe inspires you to get out of it. So it's pretty cool how inspiration, for at least for you and I, comes from
everywhere.
So many different places, so many different people. Like you're obviously a product of your environment. Like the things that I say in my thought process is something that I've developed over my experiences, over who I surround myself with, over everything. And then it's constantly evolving too, right? Like I'm sure that someday, 15 years from now, I'll listen to this podcast and be completely against or in disagreement with some of the stuff that I said. Like, oh gosh,
if you're not evolving.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like if your mindset doesn't change in 15 years, if my mindset doesn't change in 15 years, I'm doing something wrong.
We were talking about that. I don't know if it was you and I or someone else and myself. We were talking about politics and how over the years, like they'll what they do is they try to kind of shame a certain politic, like the opposite political party, and say, oh, so-and-so flip-flops on this issue. Like 5-10 years ago, they said this, and now their stance is this. It's like, what, you can't change your mind on something?
Right.
Like I change my mind day to day, like on certain issues. Maybe not anything like groundbreaking, but like little things. Like I want to go eat this food, and then I change my mind halfway through cooking. I want to eat this, know? So I think that's a good way to think about it, is evolutionarily. Like you're not evolving as a person or as a free and open thinker if your viewpoints on things remain completely stagnant.
Agreed.
Now there's certain I don't know really what I'd call them, like non-negotiables that shouldn't change, like humanely, I guess, like humane common sense.
Yeah.
Like
morals. Having a good
punching someone in the face is not good. Doesn't matter. Like that's just bad. You shouldn't just go punch people in the face.
Yeah, that's bad.
So, but yeah, for sure, man. There's definitely ways that evolve or changing your thought process is manifestation of evolving.
Yeah.
I
think getting out of your comfort zone in general is a great way to help yourself evolve.
Because the comfort zone shifts then.
Yeah.
The comfort zone is no longer what it was. It is now is what it is.
Getting out of your comfort zone should get harder too.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning, when I first started going to the gym, that was getting out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Backing it up. When I first started walking, that was my comfort zone. That was getting out of the comfort zone. And even to back it up farther, when I first stopped drinking pop, that was getting out of my comfort zone. So like it's like a paradigm shift all the way through a process is, it should be harder and harder and harder to get out of your comfort zone. Like today was getting out of our comfort zone because we have gotten comfortable with not lifting every day.
Yeah.
Not training every day.
Yeah.
In some way or form. Not strength training, so to speak, every single day.
Think about too, like when it comes to getting out of your comfort zone and changing things, let's talk specifically about a very, very relatable example in building muscle. If you want to build muscle tissue, your body will adapt to the stimulus you give it. So if you give it a continued stimulus, that isn't progressive in nature, it's going to stay stagnant. So you need to continue to do more, in a sense, with your muscles.
Right.
So a couple ways to do that are frequency, volume, and intensity. Frequency being how often you train, volume being how long or how much you do for the training, and then intensity being the strength component,
Right.
like adding progressively overloaded weight. The only one that's sustainable long term is the weight, right? You can only train so frequently, and you can only do so much in a given workout and continue to increase it. I mean, there's only so many hours in a day, so you have to do progressive overload through weight. So what happens when you slowly add weight, a little bit at a time, little bit at a time, little bit at a time? You add muscle. Your body adapts to the stimulus, says, oh crap, we don't want to experience this again. Let's build back stronger to make sure that doesn't happen and we don't feel like that. So you build muscle tissue. You know, your body's very intelligent in that sense. So then the new comfort zone continues to grow and progress. So I think that's kind of an analogy to parallel life.
Right.
Like in life, the more you get out of your comfort zone, either the further you get out of it or the more often you get out of it, that's slowly going to start to shift a little bit towards the radical ends. Now it's just a matter for most people of how do I go about getting out of my comfort zone by my own choice? Because it's one thing to get out of your comfort zone when you're pushed out, but then your first response is quickly run back in. When you're out of your comfort zone by your own accord, now it's tough because you're like, oh, I'm trying to stay out here. I'm trying to stay. One thing that I've been doing lately has been taking cold showers. I got it from, I mean, there's a bunch of literature and I've heard several people, talk about the benefits physiologically of cold showers, but the person who's really propagated the most, at least that I watch, is Ben Greenfield.
Yeah.
And he talks about all the health benefits of cold showers. So now I take cold showers, and it's horrible. But I'm purposely getting out of my comfort zone, and it's like I said earlier, I'm the one that's doing it, and I want to go back in. I want to turn it on warm, but I stand there as long as I can. 5, 6, 7 minutes till I can't take it anymore, or until I just need to stop. And then all of a sudden, okay, I'm out and I'm done taking my cold shower and I'm benefiting because of it. So
there's another guy though. It's called Wim Hof.
Wim Hof, yeah.
Yeah, he's an animal, and like
certain breathing techniques that he does. I'm vaguely familiar with it.
And he does cold therapy. He running and I don't know the thing. We'll have to talk about it in a different episode because I'll have to research it again. But he did like a 5. It was a race. I think it was a marathon, barefoot in the snow.
Yep.
And I'm like, this guy is insane. But when you said cold showers, that's something that I've been wanting to do this whole journey. I want to introduce that. Is cold therapy in general. Ice baths, cold showers.
Yeah, a ton of therapeutic and recovery benefits to it, for sure.
And the Wim Hof breathing, that real deep breaths, rapid deep breath. That's all stuff that I want to experience, because that's something to get you out. Talk about getting out of your comfort zone.
And he's I mean, right there with one of the most miraculous out of comfort zoners that I've ever seen, like going back to Goggins. I mean, he's probably the king, at least in my experience, of anybody that's gotten out of the comfort zone by far. So,
I mean, I think these guys are where I pull my inspiration to, and why I pick such big goals, is if guys you can do anything you put your mind to. So, and I've realized that Goggins was 300 pounds before he, 3 months before he decided that he wanted to be a Navy SEAL. So in 3 months, he lost over 100 pounds and learned enough to pass the ASVAB with a high enough score to get into the Navy SEALs. That's just a little snippet if you want to read his book. But that's, so seeing people hit him through his book, listening to what he says, get over that stuff. It's like, yeah, dude, you can do whatever you want. Like, just put your mind to it and do it.
Yep.
And getting out of your comfort zone is a huge part of accomplishing your goals. I would have never ran a 5K in 39 minutes if I didn't walk that first one in 58. And if I wouldn't have signed up, I would have never walked that first one. If I wouldn't have told everybody that I was going to do it,
which was uncomfortable.
Using that accountability mirror, using that theory of, if I tell everybody I'm going to do it, I have to hold my end of the bargain up. They're all cheering me on and pushing me forward, I have to hold up my end of the deal. That's all. I have the easy part. I just have to execute the task.
Yep.
So use people, use your family and friends as accountability to get out of your own comfort zone. Make that first step and say, hey, I'm going to run a marathon in 2021.
Like, it wasn't comfortable for us starting a podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Having no idea what we were doing. I don't mind. See, for me, it wasn't the speaking part, because I don't mind that. Like, I don't want to say public speaking, but I've spoken in front of several hundred people before, and that doesn't faze me. Like, I enjoy that. For me, it was difficult doing something that I didn't know if I would be good at or not.
Right.
Because now when you do a podcast, people are out there listening to it. It could be terrible, and you're putting something out there terrible. Like,
right.
You like showing off the things that you're good at, not what you're bad at.
Right. Well, and that was where I was at with it too, because for my whole life and people will disagree with this, but through my eyes, I was terrible at a lot of things, at most things. And now I found some success, and then we talked about this podcast and we wanted to do this thing. I was terrified that I was going to suck at it. And first few episodes, I think I kind of did. I was choppy at talking.
Maybe we still suck at it. Who knows?
Who knows? I don't know. I feel like we're getting better.
Yeah.
So, but I felt like it was something that we talked about, and I was like, we got to do it. I have to do it. It has to happen, because now we talked about it. And now, to be honest, there's been a few weeks where it was hard to find the time to get the recording done, but it's out of our comfort zone. We don't like to fail, so we're not going to fail. So we're going to keep pushing ourselves to make sure, even if there's 24 hours in a day and we have 23 hours worth of stuff planned, we're going to get a podcast done on Saturday, regardless of what happens.
Which has happened before.
It has.
Where we've had to record it super early morning or super late at night to get it in before midnight. Like, it's just, that's how it is.
It is what it is. And I'm going to go live here and say that it's happening. Like, it's going to always happen, because we made a deal to you guys.
Yep.
And to each other.
So speaking of deal, that's a nice transition as we wrap things up here to talk about our sponsor, Beast Mode Baking, and Shannon Knorr. So we talked about it last week. Beast Mode Baking is our first and only sponsor so far to the podcast. So if you guys are interested in the top quality baked goods, and
it's like craft. It's like the craft beer of baking.
Talking about it doesn't do it justice. You actually have to see it too. Yeah. There's a visual aspect that goes into what she makes that, like, it looks unreal. So visit Shannon Knorr's Instagram. We'll tag her in this post, and Beast Mode Baking is on my Instagram. Yes. We promote them a lot. So get an order in, because every one of your orders helps support us as well.
Yes.
So we appreciate Shannon and all of her loyal customers as well.
Awesome. I think that's a good spot, man.
Yep.
It is.
Wraps up very naturally for us. So with that, we've come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast. This is episode 28, right?
Yes, episode 28.
All right. So I'm Charlie and with Justin, and we will see you guys next week.